I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Gary, we don't have microphones for this.
The microphones are up above.
Oh, okay.
Yep, they'll catch you.
Maybe the art.
Yep. Welcome to tonight's candidate forums for candidates seeking office of the Cole County Assessor and for those seeking to represent Missouri's 3rd Congressional District. I'm Gary Castor, editor and general manager of the Jefferson City News Tribune, and I'll serve as moderator of tonight's forums. Our first forum tonight will feature 2 candidates who are seeking the Republican nomination for Cole County Assessor. No Democrat has filed for the office, so the winner of the August 6th Republican primary is virtually assured of winning the office in the November general election. Prior to tonight, the candidates were advised the rules of the forum. They were told they would be provided an opportunity for an opening statement, a round of questions from ourselves, the News Tribune, as well as readers, and then a closing statement. For each of these segments, they will be given 1 minute to speak. Seated next to me is Lane Strassner, News Tribune Community Engagement Editor, and she will serve as timekeeper for tonight's forum. So let me introduce the candidates for tonight's forum. To my left is Chris Estes. He's the incumbent. He was appointed Cole County Assessor in 2007 and is seeking a 5th term. A Cole County native, he worked in law enforcement and construction before he was appointed to public office by then Governor Matt Blunt. He has since won elections in 2008, 2012, 2016, and 2020. He has 3 children and 5 grandchildren. To my right is Tim Theroff. He is general manager of the Riverview Cemetery Association and a former real estate appraiser who left the industry in 2015. The Jefferson City native has 4 children and lives on a family farm in Stringtown where he raises cattle. The order for the opening and closing statements was determined beforehand by drawing lots. So the first opening statement will begin, and it'll begin with Chris.
My name is Chris Estes. I'm current Cole County Assessor. I've been there 16 and a half years. I've got one of the better records in the state of Missouri as far as assessors are concerned. I have a staff of top-notch people who do a wonderful job. My family is longtime Jefferson City natives. My parents are still living on the family century farm. I have 3 children, as Gary said, and 5 grandchildren, and love every one of them. They're what helped me keep moving when I'm growing old. I'd like to have your vote for me again for 1 more term as a Cole County Assessor. I promise you that I will do the job with honesty, integrity, and fairness.
Okay, Tim.
Hi, my name's Tim Theroff. I'd like to thank the News Tribune for hosting this forum and my opponent coming here tonight. I am a conservative Christian who was born and raised here in Jefferson City, Missouri. Graduated from Jefferson City High School in 1988 and attended Westminster College. Reside on the family farm in Stringtown. I have 4 kids, all of whom graduated from Jefferson City High School. My mom and dad, Larry and Sandy Theroff, are from the Russellville-Lowman area. My brother Ken and sister-in-law Susie work here in Jefferson City. My daughter and son-in-law, my daughter's an ER nurse here in Jeff, and my son-in-law is a policeman here in town. My girlfriend Cappy lives and works here in Jefferson City. So very invested in the community. I have 25 years of real estate appraisal experience. I have the endorsement of the Jefferson City Area Board of Realtors. I currently, for the last 10 years, have been managing the Riverview Cemetery Association, and really looking forward to the opportunity to work for the taxpayers of Cole County.
Okay. All right, gentlemen, let's get started with our questions. Again, as I said, some of these will be driven by staff members of the News Tribune. Some were submitted from readers who sent emails to vote@newstribune.com. So we'll start with Tim. Why are you running for the assessor seat, and what would be your priorities if elected?
So I am, as I said, I had 25 years experience as a real estate appraiser, and I missed the profession. I was fortunate enough to manage Riverview Cemetery over the last 10 years, and I think I've got it pointed down the road in the right direction. So I'm looking forward to the opportunity of a new challenge. The idea of doing appraisals on a macro scale versus a micro scale really fascinates me. To do automated valuation models and to do data analysis on a macro scale really fascinates me. My priority would be to bring a level of professionalism and efficiency to the office, and to use my appraisal experience to train the staff as well as I possibly could.
All right. Chris, same question.
Could you repeat it, please?
Yes. Why are you running for the assessor's seat, and what would be your priorities if elected?
I've been a public servant for almost 40 years, and I've seen a lot of government. I've seen good government, and I've seen bad government. What I come to realize is that you can't change government from the outside. You have to do it from the inside. My wife and I made the decision that I would seek this position and try to make one area at least of county government serve the taxpayers and not special interests. That's been my main goal, and that's what I will continue to do. The office is being run with professionalism and integrity. As I said previously, I have some of the best employees in the state of Missouri, and they know their job. The assessor's office mostly needs somebody who understands the law, because that's the majority of what the assessor does, is actually to read, interpret, and apply the law.
Okay. Next question. Chris, we'll start with you. What are the biggest challenges facing the assessor's office for this next term?
One very difficult situation is the current housing market, and I'm sure that some of you are probably aware of it. We've had a low supply, high demand market for a couple of years now, and housing prices have skyrocketed. The challenge that I have there is to increase gradually the tax base based on the value of the property so as not to burden the taxpayers too much. You have to be careful about how you apply the state statutes, because the taxpayer is ultimately the person that you serve. And giving them a large increase in their tax bill is not what was intended, I don't believe.
All right. Tim, same question.
So I think the biggest challenge is trying to come back into compliance with the state tax commission. Currently, my opponent has signed a memorandum of understanding with the state tax commission saying what his assessor's plan will be to come back into compliance. So it's my understanding, the way I read the language in the memorandum of understanding, is that he's going to raise values for half the county by up to 13% and the other half by up to 6 to 7%. So I think that is going to be a challenge to bring to pass the sales ratio study by the state tax commission and bring the county into compliance.
All right. Next question. Tim, we'll start with you. The assessor's job is a full-time job. How many hours would constitute a full work week for the assessor and for the staff? Do you believe that is currently being done? Explain your answer.
So in today's world, I think we view professions as I make X dollars a year and I work X hours a week, and that's not the world that I grew up in. When I started appraising in 1992, I was starting a family and raised 4 kids on a single income, and during the majority of that time, I never earned a salary. I was paid based on the number of appraisals that I completed. So in that environment, you have to work in high gear and you have to maintain high gear. And so that work ethic is what I learned as a young man, and the work ethic that I have today. For instance, if you've got hay on the ground, you can't say it's going to take X hours to put the bales in the barn. You just have to put one foot in front of the other and work as hard as you can to get the bales in the barn. So I can tell you, if you elect me as your assessor, that I'll work as hard as I can and I'll get the bales put in the barn.
Okay. Chris, same question.
When I was appointed to the position in 2007, I worked an average of 60 to 80 hours a week for the first 3 years. And during that time, I didn't take a vacation in the first 3 years. We've been fortunate enough that I've been able to retain 3 employees from when I took over the office 16 and a half years ago. I have a lot of years of experience with some of my employees. They know their jobs. They're very good at their jobs. They generally don't need a lot of supervision, but there still needs to be the assessor's presence. The assessor's duties are not all taken care of inside the office. There are a lot of duties that are taken care of outside the office, whether it be reviewing property, supervising employees, or looking into legislation.
Okay. A follow-up question for both of you. So should the staff or assessor be allowed to do assessments from home using Google Earth or similar programs? Do you believe that's being done currently? Explain your answer. Chris, we'll start with you.
I don't believe you can get accurate information by looking at Google Maps to determine what property has what characteristics and things like that. You certainly can't get an accurate measurement by using Google Earth, and that's one thing that we have to have on every property. There are things that can be in existence in the property, whether it be the structure or the land itself, that are not immediately noticeable looking at Google Earth. And all of these things have to be taken into account to determine what the valuation should be. Now, granted, we do that on a large scale, but we still individually inspect each property when we do reassessments.
Okay. Tim, same question.
Would you repeat the question, please?
Should the staff or assessor be allowed to do assessments from home using Google Earth or similar programs? Do you believe that that is being done currently? And explain your answer.
No, I do not think that that should be done from home. I think there's all kinds of information that would be needed in the assessor's office. So I would not be a fan of doing it from home or having the staff do it from home. I have no idea if it's being done right now or not, but I would not be in favor of that. No.
Okay. So, last question on office hours, if you will. Okay. So, kind of give me an idea, percentage-wise, what percentage of the assessor's work week should be in office or out of office, with the idea that it's a customer service, if you will. So, Tim, we'll start with you.
Right. Well, as far as the in-office stuff, like Chris said, there is a very competent staff in place right now that knows their job. So I don't know that the assessor would necessarily have to be there. I'm sure there are all kinds of responsibilities that call you away from the physical office itself. But I can tell you that I personally would want to be there as often as I possibly could and try to get as much work done from the office so that I'm available to the staff, so that I'm available to the general public, and leadership by example with regards to work ethic.
Okay, so I want to pin you down. Give me a percentage of what you would commit to voters that you would be willing to be in office?
40 hours a week at a minimum. So, I mean, I don't, whatever jobs, whatever tasks would take you outside of the office, you know, obviously you would need to tackle those. But again, working from home, working in absentia for no other reason, I'm not a fan of that.
Okay. Chris, same question.
It's very difficult to pin down a specific percentage because every day is a little bit different. Things come up during the day, things come up the day before, things come up at quitting time that have to be dealt with. A lot of times I'm in the evening until 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening. I'm in the office on weekends occasionally. It's just whatever the office needs, and that can be anywhere from 30 on a rare occasion to 110%, if you will, just depending on what is currently going on.
Okay. Okay, so next question, we'll start with Chris. The current relationship between the assessor's office and some other county offices, particularly the county commission, is strained. Why do you think that exists, and what could or should be done to alleviate that?
One of the problems that I've encountered is each elected official is elected to run their individual office. There are times that the county commission attempts to micromanage those individual offices. In fact, I had a county employee today tell me that the county commissioners were my supervisor. And I corrected on that. They are not my supervisor. I was elected by the taxpayers. I answer to the taxpayers. That's who I work for. We're supposed to be equal, working together for the betterment of the county. I'm willing to compromise on items. Sometimes I'm not given the opportunity to compromise. I have tried. You can watch any of the county commission hearings I've been in. I'm polite, kind, but often get attacked and then have to respond.
Okay. Tim, same question.
So I don't know that I can speak to that specifically. I can tell you in my line of work, for over my career as a real estate appraiser, I developed a reputation with the local realtors of being conservative or low. I said I was right. I put a lot of work into doing my appraisals. But over that period of time, you know, the realtors were always pushing the envelope of value because they were trying to get more for their client and in turn earn more at the closing table at commission time. So we had situations where there were conflicts between the two of us, but even through all of that, I was asked to serve on their board of directors for the Jefferson City Area Board of Realtors. I have the endorsement of the Jefferson City Area Board of Realtors for this race. So there is the ability to maintain a professional relationship even though you disagree on something. So I would strive to maintain a professional relationship and agree to disagree at times.
Can I make a short rebuttal?
There was nothing specific.
I don't think there was anything to rebut.
Okay.
So, corrected that. So, okay, Tim, we'll go with you next. The assessor's office has come under fire from taxing entities in the county regarding the irregularity of reassessment and the effects it has on their budgets. Do you believe the assessor's office has been adequately reassessing the value of property in the county? Explain your answer.
I don't know. I can tell you that, again, that the current assessor has signed a memorandum of understanding with the State Tax Commission to raise the values. We have seen an increase due to an undersupply of homes. We've seen an increase that is probably unprecedented. I've seen cycles of values, you know, run up and down with time. I think in order to be able to mirror those, you need to be as close to market value as you can. So when those happen, you can move with the market. So I don't know that I have enough of a working knowledge to really make a macro statement like that. but I do think that it's important that you keep things as accurate as you possibly can so you can move with the market.
All right. Chris, same question.
Would you repeat it, please?
Yes. The assessor's office has come under fire from taxing entities in the county regarding the irregularity of reassessment and the effects it has on their budgets. Do you believe the office has been adequately reassessing the value of property in the county? Explain your answer.
The county assessor's office is working constantly to review values. There often becomes situations that we have no control over. We had an issue when we were forced to go to a new software system, and that software system didn't have a way to keep track of partial frame and partial brick homes. And when they converted the values, they converted all partials to all brick homes. This obviously created a large problem with a great number of properties, because all of a sudden a 75% frame and 25% brick house became a 100% brick house. And the values were so far off that there was no way that we could accept that. And we had to do an individual house by house review to determine what percentage was frame, what percentage was brick, get that put into the system. So when we review those properties, each one can be looked at and determine the percentage.
Okay. Next question, Chris. How often are houses supposed to be reassessed, scheduled in the same subdivision? And what distinguishes houses other than recent sales?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, please?
Yes. How often are houses to be reassessed, scheduled in the same subdivision? What distinguishes houses other than recent sales?
So are you asking, when you say reassess schedule, are you asking the statutory requirements?
Yes.
Okay. Statutory requirements state that there's a reassessment every odd year. That is the year for the majority of the changes. And the even year property can only be changed if there's a change to the property or if it's new construction. Give me that question one more time.
How often are houses to be reassessed, scheduled in the same subdivision? What distinguishes houses other than recent sales?
State statutes also requires that once every 4 years, each individual property is visually inspected by an employee of the assessor's office. We try to do that every 2 years. Most of the time it's accomplished, not all the time, but we still fall within what statutory requirements are.
So within the last year, 2 years, what has been the pattern?
We have had people out constantly reviewing properties. Off the top of my head, I couldn't say where they're at with that. The last reassessment year was 2023. So everything was reassessed in 2023. Every property in Cole County was reassessed. So I think that we've been pretty well taking care of our statutory requirements.
Okay. Tim, same question.
I would say asked and answered on the first part by Chris. What distinguishes houses from other sales? There are all kinds of different features. If through paired sales analysis is really how the rubber meets the road. You take an apple with an attached garage and an apple with a basement garage, and you see what the difference in sales price was, and that's how you determine what the value difference is between those two property. If you analyze enough paired sales analyses, you come to a conclusion as to what is a square footage adjustment, what is a basement finish adjustment, what is a detached garage adjustment. And so different physical features of the homes, differences in square footage, differences in condition, you can determine all the differences between those homes and what the market is willing to pay for the differences in those homes through paired sales analyses.
Okay. Next question, we'll start with Tim. This comes from a reader, so I'll specifically say that because I think he or she may have had some experience with this. So, given all houses in a subdivision are the same age, how is the house generally assessed without a visit, given potential changes or updates in an individual house?
I'm sorry.
I'll read it again.
Yes.
Given all houses in a subdivision are the same age,
Okay.
how is a house generally assessed without a visit, given potential changes or updates in that individual house?
Well, without a visit, I don't know that you could determine that there had been any changes made in that specific house. So I think a visit, a site visit would be imperative in order to make that determination.
Okay. Chris?
One way that we pick that up is through through construction permits with the city. Occasionally we get some information from Public Works with the county about new construction going on. As I said, I have employees who are out in the field almost every day. We try to stay in during inclement weather or if it's over 95 degrees. But other than that, the staff is out reviewing property in all neighborhoods. It's kind of rare for an entire subdivision to be the same age. And even if they're the same age, there's still going to be differences in the property. So each of those has to be taken into account. Some of the things that are taken into account there are things that you can't view from the outside, and we get from building plans, we get from speaking to the homeowner, and some of the building permits that we get.
Okay. All right, Chris, we'll go with the next question. How do you compare houses in differing neighborhoods and change assessments without detailed visits?
Without detailed visits. Are you talking initial detailed visits or down the road?
I'm thinking they're talking about down the road.
Down the road, okay. Yeah, as I said, I have staff that's in the field almost every day. We're reviewing business permits, building permits on a regular basis. We send out questionnaires to homeowners. We send out sales questionnaires. We send out questionnaires on any major changes that have occurred in the property. In fact, we had one property, I certify the values on July 1st every year. And after
A value determination in absentia, I think, is not plausible.
And Tim, in the most recent county audit, the assessor's office was the lone county office that did not meet with a certified public accounting firm that was hired to audit the county's operations. Do you believe this is an issue? Explain your answer.
I'm not privy to that information. I mean, if it's a requirement that, it sounds like other county offices and elected officials met with them to go over those types of things. So I can tell you that if that's a requirement, I would most definitely do that. I'd be front and center and right there to meet with whomever to do things as professionally as possible.
Chris, same question.
You're speaking of the Williams Keepers company who does the county audit, and they called me and said that they would talk to me on a specific day. I was in my office. They didn't come, and I had no further contact from them. I have met with the Williams Keepers or the auditors in the past. There were 2 years, I believe, that I didn't do it, and that was because that they created a statistic, initially using 5 properties out of 35,000 to come up with a percentage, or to come up with a statistic which they believe showed that properties, pardon me, weren't being valued. And after they took the first initial 5, they added 5 more hand-picked properties and added that to their statistics. So they used 10 properties out of over 35,000 to create a narrative.
Okay. All right. All right, Chris, next question. How would you assess the needs of the staff as far as training, manpower, number of staff? How would you assess that?
We have a plan that we have to do every 2 years. It is laid out by the Missouri State Tax Commission. The tax commission gives us a target number of employees that we need to have based on the amount of work that's in the office. We try to reach that position. We have not, since I've been the assessor. I have no control over the salaries that are paid to the employees. So it's been very difficult to find employees to come to work for the assessor's office. When I do find them, a lot of times they'll stay for a while, but then they'll leave because their pay is stagnant and lags behind almost every other county office except for maintenance. That's been an issue for trying to get the work done.
Okay.
Would you repeat, please?
Yes. So how would you assess the staffing needs of the assessor's office, from training to number of employees, et cetera?
Very difficult to do from the outside looking in. I'm not intimate with the staff. I would assume, Chris said he has a very competent staff, and as far as needs that I might be able to fill would be to bring in a work ethic and a sense of professionalism that would help them in raising their game and becoming more efficient in what they do.
Okay. All right. Tim, why do you believe you would be a better assessor than Chris?
So with the 25 years of real estate appraisal experience, I was a state licensed residential appraiser in the state of Missouri. I went through the requirements and the apprenticeship and was in the trenches every single day for 25 years. It was my profession for 25 years. So I know the appraisal side inside and out. I think I bring a level of professionalism, a thick skin, the ability to get along well with others even when you disagree. I will put my work ethic up against anyone's, and I think bring an energy and a fresh perspective to the job. I would embrace software. I would embrace, instead of looking at it as an obstacle, I would embrace it and use it to its fullest extent.
All right.
Could you repeat that, please?
Sure. Chris, why do you believe you would be a better assessor than Tim?
I respect Mr. Seroff, and I'm sure that he's very capable. When I learned of the opening coming up in the assessor's office in 2007, I went and spoke to the current assessor and asked him, what do you spend the majority of your time doing? And he was seated at his desk when I asked this, and he pointed over to his bookshelf at his law books, and he said, I spend my time in my law books. That's the majority of what an assessor does. I felt that this meshed very well with my experience, so I put my name up for the position, and here I am today. I think that I have 16 and a half years experience as the Cole County Assessor. For most of those years, we have been one of the most accurate in the state of Missouri. We only became out of compliance based on the State Tax Commission's requirements in, I believe it was 2019, 2021 maybe, and that was partially due to a new software that we were forced to take.
Okay. All right, so let's go to our closing statements. So Chris, we'll start with you.
As I said, I respect my opponent, and I think he's a very capable individual, but I believe that the experience that I have, the leadership abilities that I have, the guidance that I provided to the employees that I have helped to make our office one of the most productive in the state of Missouri. We could do with a little less interference, and we would be better off. We could do with a little bit of support. We would be a lot better off. The assessor's office is funded completely separate from any other county function. The county runs on general revenue, generally speaking. The assessor's office runs on the assessment fund. When I took over the assessment fund, it was about $570,000. Now it's over $1.5 million. This could really be used to help pay the salaries of my county employees, who are some of the lowest in the county. Additionally, I have the leadership to keep the ship running correctly and on track.
All right. Tim, same closing statement.
I'd like to thank the Tribune again for hosting the forum, and thanks Chris for the job that he's done. Cole County is a first-class county in the state of Missouri. Jefferson City is the state capital, and I think that our elected officials should be beacons for other counties in the state as to how to run government efficiently and professionally. So I think it's time for a change in the assessor's office. I think we need to have a higher level of professionalism. Like I said, I'll put my work ethic up against anyone's. And so if I am elected by the taxpayers of Cole County, I will work as hard as I can, and I will go to work for them and try to do the best job that I possibly can.
All right. On behalf of the News Tribune, I'd like to thank the candidates for participating in this forum. In addition to stories about this forum and tomorrow's News Tribune, we'll have a variety of other means by which you can become more informed about this race. We'll be asking candidates questions that we didn't get to tonight, as well as other questions as they come up from readers who submit them to our vote@newstribune.com email address. We're going to take a short recess and resume with the forum for candidates seeking the 3rd District in about 10 minutes.
It's just down the street from my sister, who's the music minister.
Welcome to tonight's forum for candidates seeking to represent Missouri's 3rd District in Congress. The candidates are seeking their party's nomination in the August 6th primary election and then seek to advance to the November 5th general election. I'm Gary Castor, editor and general manager of the News Tribune here in Jefferson City, and I'll serve as moderator of this forum. 7 candidates are seeking the Republican nomination for the office. 2 Democrats are seeking the party's nomination, and a Libertarian has also filed for the seat, setting up a general election race in November. Prior to tonight, the candidates were advised the rules of the forum. They were told they would be provided an opportunity for an opening statement, a round of questions, and then a closing statement. For each of these segments, they will be given 1 minute to speak. Seated next to me is Lane Strassner, the News Tribune Community Engagement Editor. She will serve as timekeeper for the forum. So let me introduce the candidates for the forum who are here tonight. So to my right is Bethany Mann. She's from St. Peter's and is a Democrat candidate. She is a scientist with a background in agriculture, manufacturing, and energy and water infrastructure. She started her career in the Environmental Protection Agency, testing water and soil for environmental contaminants. Now she regularly works with federal and state agencies regarding water and energy infrastructure. To my left is Bruce Bowman. He's from Jefferson City and is a Republican candidate. Bowman had a 20-year career in the U.S. Army, and he served as a division chief for the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He was a Green Beret and has a doctorate in civil engineering from Columbia University. He worked in business and academia and is now retired. Bowman moved to Jefferson City 5 years ago. The other 8 candidates who are not here tonight, I'll go through their biographies. Bob Onder, who's seeking the Republican nomination, is a physician and small business owner. He also previously served as a state senator. Kurt Schaefer, who is seeking the Republican nomination, is a former state senator and spent 6 of his 8 years in the Senate as the Appropriations Chair. He also was a former Assistant Attorney General, Special Assistant United States Attorney, and a private practice lawyer. Justin Hicks, who is seeking the Republican nomination, is a state representative from Lake St. Louis and has served 2 years in the Missouri House. He grew up in St. Louis County and served in the U.S. Army. He then went to law school, worked in the Missouri Attorney General's office, and then ran for the Missouri House. Kyle Bone, a Republican, is from Farmington and grew up in an Army family. He served in the Navy and worked for several airplane-related companies, Boeing most recently. He now lives in DeSoto. A.C. Dienoff and Chad Bicknell have filed also as Republicans for the office, but don't have a website or a full-scale campaign underway. Andrew Daly, who is seeking the Democratic nomination, grew up in Michigan, received a degree in applied mathematics in Texas, and moved to Fulton, where he has served for 3 years as the athletic director for the Missouri School for the Deaf. In addition to his role as athletic director, he's finishing his master's degree in business analysis at William Woods University. Jordan Roden, who is a libertarian candidate, grew up in Iberia. He has a bachelor's degree in business and a focus on financial services. He worked for a bank for a few years and then did ministry work in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He's now self-employed and lives in Vienna. All of the candidates were invited to the forum. We thank Bethany and Bruce for their ability to be here today. So we discussed beforehand, our tradition here is we rotate who begins in each segment of this forum, and we're going to start with Bethany, and she will give her opening statement.
Hello, thank you for being here. I want to say thank you to the Jeff City Tribune for holding this forum. A free and fair press and the open exchange of ideas are fundamental for our democracy. I'd like to introduce myself. I am Bethany Mann. I'm running for Congress in Missouri's 3rd Congressional District. I am qualified to hold this seat because of my experience in agriculture, engineering, or agriculture, manufacturing, and water infrastructure. I grew up in Forestell. I now live in St. Peters. And I started my career working as an intern at the EPA, where I tested water and soil samples for environmental contaminants that have been dumped into our land by big corporate polluters. I'm running for office because I believe that Missouri can and should be a leader when it comes to important issues that make for healthy families and a strong middle class. I believe that our water should be clean and free of environmental contaminants like lead and forever chemicals. Our students should be fully supported through pre-K to secondary schooling, and we should expand healthcare access, not restrict it.
Thank you. Bruce?
Well, thank you very, very much for this invitation and hosting this event. It is very important to me to be here in central Missouri, the heart of the state, and in our capital city. I am very disappointed that my fellow Republican candidates didn't see that it was important enough to join us here tonight, but I'm thankful for this opportunity. As in the introduction, I am Bruce Bowman. I am a retired Army Lieutenant Colonel, served as a Green Beret, and before retiring was the Wargaming Division Chief for the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff in the Pentagon. Like President Trump, whom I fully support, I am not a career politician. I'm here to serve, I'm here to restore law and order, and I'm here to, in the words of the President, make America great again. We have tremendous potential here in Missouri, symbolized by the arch, the spirit of adventure moving west, and the spirit of St. Louis soaring above. If you'd like to know more, go to bowmanforushouse.com.
All right. So let's begin with our questions. We'll start with Bruce. Why are you running for the 3rd District seat, and what would be your priorities if elected?
Well, thank you. I'm running because I've been watching our country turn upside down, and I believe that we are quickly reaching a tipping point from which our republic will not recover. I believe that we have not been served by the political establishment, and this state and the country are ready for a warrior who is willing to fight. I've served with Green Berets, Navy SEALs, Rangers, paratroopers, even members of the Israeli Defense Forces, and we have a warrior ethos. That is, we actually believe in duty, honor, country. We do what we say, and we say what we mean, unlike many of the career politicians whom we've learned not to trust. You see the divisiveness that is prevalent in the Republican primary right now with Mr. Schaefer and Mr. Onder slinging mud at each other, very negative. That's not what we need. We need to clean it up, restore faith in the government, and return to civility, but fight on common core American values.
Right. Bethany, same question.
Yeah, so I'm running for office because I think Missouri's 3rd Congressional District is tired of weak leaders who don't deliver results for Missouri's 3rd Congressional District. They seek to divide us using social issues so that they can bow down to corporations and give them bailouts while working families suffer. When I'm in office, my priority will be to clean up our water. We have an environmental catastrophe going on right now with PFAS chemicals that cause cancer in military bases and airports and in our groundwater also. So my priority will be to clean up our water, make sure that we fully support our students by investing in programs like universal pre-K, and then making sure that our healthcare options are expanded, particularly here in this district where maternal health outcomes are so poor.
Very good. Next question will start with Bethany. The incumbent was in Congress for 15 years but is not seeking re-election. How well do you think he served the district, and what would you do the same or differently?
I think Blaine Lukemeyer disgraced his congressional district by supporting an attempted coup on the United States of America on January 6th. He aided and abetted insurrectionists and have sought to divide our electorate instead of bringing us together. In addition to that, he hasn't even been able to secure very basic functions of his office, like passing a meaningful farm bill that will support his constituents. He spent a lot of time in Washington, D.C. and down in Florida raising money and hobnobbing with donors, and not enough time working with his constituents to deliver results here at home. What I'll do differently is I will bring Missouri together. I will invest in politics that bring us together and don't divide. One of the ways that we do this is to focus on things that we can all get along and find agreement on, and infrastructure is a great way to find common ground on that too.
All right, Bruce?
I think Mr. Lukemeyer is held in high esteem and high regard as a man of character who repeatedly returned to the district and fought for the district. He chaired the Small Business Committee, but I draw a line of distinction. The economy in Missouri has not been that great, particularly in central Missouri. The population has not grown much, business has not grown much, and while small business is the backbone of our country, it is not flourishing to the extent that it should. Missouri has consistently, for the past 10 to 20 years, been in the bottom half of all U.S. states in annual economic growth. We need to bring some big business here, just like a shopping mall, which flourishes on anchor stores so that the small shops flourish. We need to bring Fortune 500 here to Missouri, which is smack dab in the middle of our country with the best supply lines to the rest of the country and all the interstates, rails and everything you need, and cause Missouri to become an economic leader and move out of being a laggard. And we must give up having a lukewarm and business climate to a strong business climate.
Okay. Next question will go with Bruce. If elected, what congressional committees or caucuses would you want to join? How would that serve the people in the district?
Excellent question. One I've been thinking about. Of course, it's one for negotiation once you're elected, but I'm very interested in the Armed Services Committee, being a veteran of the U.S. Army and seeing the foreign adversaries arising internationally. And I think I could be of aid there. I would look at the Veterans Affairs Committee as well, because that's a cause for which I care very, very, very much and believe I could add value. I'm also interested in commerce, in raising the standard of the business climate here in the state of Missouri. And in all of those, I would seek committee assignments that would serve my constituents and represent my constituents as well. Agriculture certainly goes without saying would be one I would look at as well. As far as caucuses go, I haven't made up my mind on any. I'm going to approach Washington, D.C. with an open mind and meet folks from the various caucuses, to include the Freedom Caucus, and make my assessment as to which serves my constituents.
Okay. Bethany, same question.
I believe that I can contribute almost immediately to the Science and Technology Committee with my experience working in water infrastructure. among Midwestern states, I'm already in a position where I can speak not only to the issue and the magnitude of PFAS and forever chemical contamination, but I have the relationships built with stakeholders to be able to meaningfully address it. I also believe that widespread remediation of our groundwater involves a labor program, so I believe the education and labor development would be a good committee or that I could contribute to. We need a jobs program to train, hire, and maintain water operators to be able to do some of the cleanup work. And we need somebody who can communicate with utilities, stakeholders, corporations, and also government agencies to be able to do the meaningful work that needs to be addressed to clean up our waterways.
Okay. Next question, we'll start with Bethany. So the 3rd district is a large district geographically, but we're going to really channel down here into Cole County and Jefferson City specifically. So what are the local needs, particularly in Cole County and Jefferson City, that you would champion if you were in Congress?
Sure. That's a great question. What I hear a lot in Cole County is I hear about the need for affordable housing, that the rent is too high and it is really hard to update the infrastructure that you have at your home. So I believe that affordable housing options should be addressed. I also believe that we should expand access to healthy and nutritious foods. In Cole County and Jeff City, we have people in our population who suffer with alpha-gal, which is a life-threatening anaphylactic allergy to a sugar that's found in meat. People have access issues finding food that is safe and properly labeled, and so properly labeled food. Some of the basics, housing, food, and then utilities. Their utilities are too high because of the high costs involved in energy generation. So if we had by investing in more sustainable energy options, we can bring down those prices for families here in this district.
Bruce, same question.
Bethany mentions a couple of good ones there. Housing certainly is key. I think a primary focus of mine would be business. This is largely a government town and survives on government business and the legislature being in session. We've got some good business here. I think we need to expand that and cause the town to grow. The population of Jefferson City is actually a little bit smaller than it was 20 years ago. Mirrors the population trend within central Missouri altogether. I think, again, bringing in business, causing the tax base to grow, causing the population to grow will cause the community to flourish and bring an additional quality of life that we're seeking here, and that will keep our young people here as well and begin to grow. We're very fortunate. I'd like to thank the law enforcement folks here. I'm so thankful to live in Jefferson City, where we have the sheriff, the police, the state troopers, and the Capitol Police. Just feel very, very secure every time I go out in the community and I see an unmarked or marked police car.
All right. Next question. Bruce, we'll start with you. Former President Trump has endorsed Bob Onder in this race. How do you respond to that endorsement?
I'm surprised. I didn't think President Trump would wade into the race because it's a heavy Republican race, and we anticipate, pardon me, Bethany, but we anticipate holding the 3rd district. So I'm surprised. I'm very surprised, too, because Bob Onder is a swamp animal, and President Trump is here to clean and drain the swamp, as am I. Bob Onder, during the pandemic, publicly promoted the COVID jab. There are YouTube videos on him on Missouri television telling tens of thousands of viewers, take the jab, it's perfectly safe. We now know it wasn't perfectly safe for everybody. It was for some. I've also gone to a government website, openpaymentsdata.cms.gov, and it shows that Bob Onder took $2.4 million from AstraZeneca from 2020 to 2023. So he's telling folks to take the COVID jab, it's safe, but he's taking $2.4 million from AstraZeneca, the failed COVID vaccine maker. So no, I don't understand the endorsement there. I think it was a mistake. The president got bad advice.
Bethany, same question.
I think the former president follows a lot of bad advice, and I don't care for the endorsement of a man who has the morals of an alley cat. And if Bob Onder wants to welcome that, then that says a whole lot about his character too. Frankly speaking, this is a race where there is a very sharp distinction between candidates. You've got candidates who believe that Americans have the choice to make decisions about their healthcare choices without the involvement of government trying to overreach and take that power and control for themselves. You have a candidate who wants to make sure that corporations pay for their fair share in taxes and that we can finally make a program like Medicare for All a reality. And then you've got candidates who are going to sit and run on the failed Reaganomics trickle down that doesn't really trickle down to the working class, it just enriches corporate donors. And so those are some pretty sharp distinctions that I think people will see. As for the former president, he's the former president for a reason, and he will be the former president after November as well.
Can I add a quick rebuttal of sorts?
I don't think, nothing was directed at you, so I don't think.
Okay, all right.
Bethany, next question starts with you. What message do you think voters should take away from the absence of opponents' appearance at this forum?
I think that's a great question. We saw in the last election cycle, and it wasn't even a primary, it was a general debate between myself and Blaine Luetkemeyer, and he also decided not to show as well. That's not a mistake and that's not an accident, it's on purpose. The other candidates who are not here tonight do not support a free and fair press. If they can't manipulate the questions that you want to ask, that our voters want to ask, then they don't want to appear to give you the publicity or the credibility. They want to take that credit for themselves. So I commend you for being here.
Ditto.
Because we should have these open exchanges of ideas, and we should have a free and fair press where cameras are rolling, you hear what I say, and you hold me accountable for the things that I say as well too.
Bruce, same question.
Yeah, I'd like to just point out that in the Army, many think of us as overly hierarchical in following orders. When somebody's trying to kill you, that's the last thing you do. You seek input, you have a very vibrant and open debate. The Army is the acknowledged champion of after-action reviews, where without blaming folks, without pointing fingers at each other, you actually ask what happened, what should have happened, and what's going to happen next time to make it better. And so having folks show up for forums like this is hugely important, particularly in an environment that's highly polarized and divided.
Do you accept that Joe Biden won election in 2020 fair and square, and will you accept the result of the coming election? Explain your answer.
The answer is yes, I do accept it. I have had a running debate with several people about that. There certainly were irregularities that I feel should be aired, and I was very disappointed that the Democrat leaders of the House did not have hearings to examine them and air them, thereby lending to the feeling and perspective among many conservatives that the election was not proper. So there are a number of things: the effect of Zuckerberg bucks, the effect of ballot boxes, the effect of the quashing of the Hunter Biden laptop story, and a number of other factors that lead one to question rightfully, and as voters we should. The Democrats have questioned every presidential election this century, and the Republicans always offered hearings to examine it. In this one instance, the Republicans dared to question, and the Democrats would not hold hearings. And I hold the Democrats accountable for subverting democracy and our republic.
Bethany, same question.
Yes, President Joe Biden won the election, and he's going to win again in November. But most importantly, Donald Trump had the opportunity to appeal the rulings in several states. He did, and he was unsuccessful. He lost, and he had a real hard time getting over it. And Donald Trump lost. He should get over it.
Okay, next question, Bethany. With your leadership in Congress, what does the future hold for Social Security and Medicare and reining in the size of those entitlements?
Absolutely, that's a wonderful question. When Bethany Mann is in Congress, I will vote to protect Social Security. I will vote to protect Medicare. I will not approve any cuts to those programs. And in fact, those programs need to be strengthened. Social Security is an easy program to strengthen. All we need to do is lift the income cap on contributions of those who make over $125,000 a year. If we did that, and with we can also strengthen Medicare by I propose a plan, Medicare for All, that makes sure that everyone has access to quality health care, and that we pay for this program by making sure that billionaires pay their fair share of taxes. We have 3,000 billionaires here in this country. 1,000 of them pay less than an 8% tax, and just taxing them at a 2% increase would be able to pay for these programs.
Same question.
Can you restate it real quick?
Absolutely. With your leadership in Congress, what does the future hold for Social Security and Medicare and reining in the size of those entitlements?
Excellent question. Just like President Trump and the Republican platform, we strongly support maintaining Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. I'd like to point out that earlier in June, I was invited by the legendary Republican strategist Grover Norquist to his Wednesday meeting that he's been holding for 30 years for about 150 Republican leaders. It came to light that the Democrats are redirecting Medicare monies. The Inflation Reduction Act allows the director of the Department of Health and Human Services to negotiate with drug companies to lower the price of medications, and those savings should be going to Medicare. In fact, of the $280 billion in anticipated Medicare savings, only 15 to 20% are going to Medicare. The Biden administration is redirecting those monies to green energy programs and not Medicare. And it's time that we reveal the Democrats' hypocrisy there. And so we're fully supportive of that. We just have to take a look at all of the other entitlement programs and their growth in order to rein in spending, because we're going bankrupt both morally and financially.
Okay. Bruce, next question comes to you. What would you support to stem the influx of illegal immigrants coming across the southern border?
You know, when you're out on the farm or somewhere and you get hurt and you start bleeding, you stop the bleeding. First step. And then you begin the treatment and examining what to do. Step one is to close the border and get control of the border. We're a nation of immigrants, always have been, but we've also always controlled immigration. Think back to Ellis Island, folks had to disembark the ship and pass tests, and if there was a problem or an illness, they were put back on the ship. We controlled immigration. We welcomed immigration. But we don't know who's crossing our border. We have a lot of folks, military-age men, crossing the border from well over 100 countries. This is not Central and South America. Furthermore, the Biden administration is funding NGOs, non-governmental organizations, with our money to recruit and transport folks from Central and South America up to the southern border. And the cartels are making a lot of money off of it, and the Chinese are routing fentanyl through. It is a threat that we have to control, we need to close, and then we need to come up with a good long-term immigration plan.
Okay. Same question, Bethany.
Absolutely. Congress needs to get to work and solve the immigration crisis in a bipartisan manner. Twice Republicans have voted down bipartisan efforts that would take some measures to solve the problem. I think that the executive action that President Biden has proposed makes some quality changes. One of them is investments in technology so that we can, this isn't the 1960s anymore. We have technology that can not only properly and quickly process visa applications, it can also show biometrics of people who are crossing. It's not a mystery who's getting across the border. We already have that technology. We also have technology that can look through containers to see if that drum is filled with fentanyl too. So we should make sure that our law enforcement departments are properly funded so that they can stop that flow. And we should also make sure that we reject the visas of corporate CEOs and government officials who are providing undocumented immigrants with work.
All right, so we're going to start up again with Bethany. What would you say to Missourians concerned about inflation and the buying power of their dollar?
That's a great question. I'm a mom. I've got toddlers. Inflation hits our pocketbook at home for sure. The cost of formula and diapers, and even the cost of chicken at the grocery store. It's enough to set any family back. What I would say to those families is that help is on the way. We need to have a government that makes smart policy that helps working families, that not only deals with the fact that our wages are stagnant and they need to be increased, but also that we should crack down on corporate greed and the root causes for why inflation is so high, right? So we lived through COVID. We saw big corporations make a whole lot of money when we were suffering the most. Then we saw after COVID where corporations said they needed to make even more money to make up for the money that they lost out on during their COVID years. We need to combat inflation by cracking down on the big corporate tax dodgers that screw the American worker. And when I'm in Congress, I'll vote to pass laws that put our trade and the security of our supply chain first.
Bruce, same question.
Look, we're spending our way into oblivion and it's raising inflation. Folks here are paying more to live worse. And it's to the pain point for a lot of folks living from paycheck to paycheck that it's not a matter of the princess and the pea with a dozen mattresses in between them anymore. It feels more like George Washington's soldiers in the American Revolution at Valley Forge walking across frozen ground without shoes. It's painful, it's hurting folks, and we need to stop it. The problem is that when we came out of COVID and we were flush with all that government money, people were spending, but there weren't enough goods to buy, and that drove up prices. What we need to do, instead of focusing and putting the Federal Reserve in a corner where it has to raise interest rates, and we see our unemployment rate now above 4%, where good, hard-working, living Americans are out of jobs, we need to remove the burdens and the regulations on business so that they can boost supply and manufacture and provide for us, thereby easing inflation. The Biden administration is looking at the horse from the wrong end.
Okay. Bruce, this question will start with you. 2/3 of all abortions are induced by medication. Do you consider this to be birth control or abortion? Explain your answer.
Well, I'm glad you used the word abortion, Gary, because we need to take control back of our language. The progressive liberals call it women's health rights. A fetus is a baby. I'm sorry, but it's a baby. And we need to reframe the whole issue from a perspective of life. We need to recognize that in every pregnancy there are 2 lives, and it's not okay to kill one of them. Furthermore, I find it rather humorous to note that the folks that are pro-choice, insofar as wanting ladies to have the right to abortion, are not pro-choice when it comes to funding it. Those of us who oppose abortion are still being required to fund abortions through taxes and insurance payments. So I find that rather hypocritical when you talk about pro-choice. I don't believe in abortions. I think we need to protect life from conception all the way to old age.
Bethany, same question.
I believe that abortion is healthcare and access to healthcare saves lives. Here in Missouri, we have a healthcare desert, particularly among maternal healthcare. We need more access to resources that provide for our health and well-being, not fewer. These draconian and backwards healthcare bans put the government right into your doctor's office. If the government can come into your doctor's office and tell you what you can do with your body, you're no longer free. The extreme healthcare ban that we have here in Missouri is a violation of our human rights, and no one should have the authority or ability to tell an American woman or parent what they should be able to do with their body. I found out that I was pregnant with my youngest the night before the Dobbs decision, and that was especially traumatic for me because I had experienced a miscarriage 3 months before, and I was offered and I took the medication that's used for an abortion. And that medication is no longer offered to women or providers who need that for care unless it's an emergency or they have to go through an administrator or a lawyer. That's too much power for the government, and there is not a legislator here in Jeff City or DC who is more qualified to make that decision than me.
Okay. Next question. Do you support, and this will go to Bethany, do you support state or federal bans on abortion, birth control, hormone therapy, or in vitro fertilization? And explain your answer.
I do not support any bans to healthcare, whether they be abortion or birth control or IVF or surrogacy or hormone replacement, any of that. It's not the government's place to decide. There are already ruling bodies that talk about the safety and efficacy of medication and medical care. We should leave those in place and let them do their jobs. We should let mothers and families and doctors decide what's best for their patients, not bureaucrats or politicians or somebody who's taken a bunch of bailouts from a big corporate lobby. I believe that Americans should be trusted with their healthcare decisions without government interference, and that the government's job should be to provide more freedoms and more access, and not men in suits who just get in the way.
Bruce, same question.
The Supreme Court has remanded the issue back to the states, and it's a decision that the Missouri legislature, representing the voters in a republic, will be examining and debating. And I think that's the proper place. I think the U.S. government overreached with its Roe versus Wade decision decades ago. The culture and the history of the United States is not to support abortions. I do not support abortions. I support life, and I support the states having the freedom now, courtesy of the Supreme Court decision, to debate and argue and begin to look at other aspects such as what technology offers a pregnant mother as alternatives to abortion. And I strongly oppose abortion, and I strongly embrace a culture of life.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you, I'm going to give you 30 more seconds to answer the rest of the question, though. Hormone therapy, in vitro fertilization, and birth control. Do you support state or federal bans on those areas?
No, I don't support bans on those at all. I think IVF has been very helpful to a lot of couples that can't conceive, and no, I wouldn't support bans on those at all.
Okay. Next question, we'll go with Bruce. What is your position on the federal government's pandemic policies on COVID vaccines and medical treatments?
I think the government overreached. I support the Great Barrington Declaration, which has been signed by well over 1 million healthcare providers, public health officials, physicians, and nurses worldwide, that basically said, let's protect those who are vulnerable. The senior citizens who have weaker immune systems, those who have significant health issues and are therefore weakened to the COVID vaccine, but let's let life go on. And because it really wasn't that big a threat, not much more than the flu to the younger generation. We need to allow the economy to drive on. Look, science is great. I have a degree in chemistry, as does Bethany. I went into engineering, which is applied science. And science informs us, but it's the political leaders who use common sense and economics then to make decisions on our life and our conduct of life and enforcing the liberties guaranteed to us by the U.S. Constitution.
Bethany, same question.
So I believe that our government failed in its response to the pandemic. We saw not just shutdowns, but we saw millions of people get sick and lots of people die. The job of government should be to give us good information so that we can make informed decisions, so that we can keep ourselves and our communities safe at the local level. The government's job is to provide resources so that we can act quickly when pandemics hit. So we should have stockpiles of vaccines for people who need them the most. We shouldn't have situations like we had in Missouri where the governor misappropriated vaccines to counties that voted for him and left other constituents in larger cities without resources. It's not true that COVID was harmless to those who had younger family members. We have people in their 30s and 40s who are now newly disabled thanks to COVID, and some good information from elected officials could have gone a long way then.
Okay. Next question, we'll start with Bethany. Do you support country of origin labels on meat products? Explain your answer.
Yes, I absolutely support country of origin labeling on meat, and I also very much support better food labeling in general. I believe that the USDA has had its powers stripped through a couple of different administrations, and we need to be able to have confidence that the meat that we buy or the grains that we buy are safe and free from contaminants, bacteria, and other things that can cause us harm in our food supply. I mentioned earlier alpha-gal. The CDC has a warning here in this state that people who come in contact with the Rocky Mountain the Lone Star tick have an increased risk of having this life-threatening allergy to a sugar found in meat. The problem with that is it applies to anything that has any kind of animal byproduct in it, so you have to read the label very carefully. And because of our outdated labeling requirements, many people are getting sick from foods when they shouldn't be. We must do more.
Bruce, same question.
I've always supported food labels so that the consumer can better understand where it's from, what's contained within. And I think we've learned a lot. I like to think back as a youngster, growing up on canned foods and all sorts of foods that we thought were the signs of a modern contemporary society that we're now discovering actually don't serve us very well and are leading to a lot of our health problems. And so my wife Leslie and I have embarked on healthy eating. I hate to tell some of you what I used to eat in the Army. I've literally had Dr. Seuss's green eggs and hams out of a sea ration can. And you eat what you eat sometimes if you have nothing else, but it's good to be living in an age where we have healthier food and we can serve our people better and let them know on the packaging what they're buying.
Okay. Next question, we'll start with Bruce. The warming climate raised the ocean temperature to a record high. The warmer water has made storms more damaging. Insurance companies raised rates an average of 11.3% across the country. Insurers have either exited or stopped renewing policies in disaster-prone states like Texas and Florida. If elected, what policies, if any, would you support to slow the climate warming and keep insurance rates from going higher?
Wow, that's a question that demands a lot more than a minute to answer. Let me just say that a lot of the data on climate warming is confounding, shall we say. I think it requires further investigation. I'm not entirely sure I agree with you that the frequency and severity of storms are any worse now than they have been in recent history. And I think there are a number of factors originating from other than human origin that we need to begin to look at as well with regards to the Earth's natural cycles and rhythms. Certainly would be something that I would look at. I support the use of alternative energy sources, but they clearly aren't at the stage where they can produce all of the energy we need now. But we need to continue to provide reliable energy, be that nuclear, gas, or fuel, oil, and strike an appropriate balance to serve our people and recognize and really take a look at the data, not be swayed by overly activist arguments.
Okay. Same question, Bethany.
So we must meaningfully address the issue of climate change. It seems to me undeniable here in this district where we see everything from droughts to flooding to electrical grid failures. Our farmers see that in their yields as well. To be able to meaningfully address, we have to work with those who are the most responsible for the the pollution, and that's with manufacturers and government agencies. We need to make sure that we offer incentives for manufacturers to adopt Six Sigma or lean manufacturing programs, along with green energy compliance and incentives for them to generate energy in greener ways. We do need more energy options, whether it be through ethanol or solar, so that people have energy independence. And sorry, I'm out of time.
Okay. Let's see. Lost track here. Bethany, we'll start with you on this next one. Many of the 2017 tax cuts, most of which benefit wealthy taxpayers and corporations, are scheduled to expire in 2025. Would you favor, one, extending all of those tax cuts, two, reducing further tax rates on corporations, three, extending only those that benefit the middle class, or four, increasing tax rates for those making over $400,000 per year and corporations, so those entities pay their fair share?
So I would let the Trump tax cuts expire. I think that they gave bailouts to the ultra wealthy and left working class families scrambling for resources. I do propose a tax on people who people that make over $400,000 or more. But most importantly, I think that the burden of taxation should fall on big corporations who utilize our infrastructure, from our roads and bridges and our waterways to our labor here as well. So I mean, if they could give the American worker a fair shake by raising their wages and providing better benefits, but we've seen time and time again that they fail to do so. So I believe that the only logical choice here at this moment is to make sure that corporations pay their fair share. Many corporations don't pay more than an 8% marginal tax rate, and they can do better and pay for more.
Bruce, same question.
You know what? People pay all the taxes. People pay taxes. You mentioned corporate taxes. Well, those are passed on. Corporations don't pay taxes. People do. It's been an interesting illuminating that as more and more people have investments in 401k, retirement savings, they're far more active in understanding the heavy toll that corporate taxes take on their own pocketbooks down the road as taxes multiply. I think we need to make the tax cuts permanent. I think history is clear that cutting taxes actually increases revenue because it spurs business development and innovation. We need to reframe the conversation. Instead of deciding who's going to pay what taxes and redistributing the tax formula, we need to expand the tax base. That is, reduce the welfare state. And we now have a lot of illegal aliens as wards of the welfare state. We need to actually boost the economy, boost business, boost the supply side of our economy, thereby putting more people to work, thereby expanding the tax base and driving the revenue flowing into the coffers, not arguing about who's paying how much taxes and what's fair.
Okay. So we're going to go back to the question of immigration. We'll start with Bruce. Donald Trump has called for the immediate deportation of 11 million undocumented immigrants. Do you support this deportation plan? Would you propose detention centers be built, for instance, in the 3rd District? How would they be paid for and how would they be staffed?
Well, I would disagree that he's called for the deportation of 11 million. He's called for the deportation of illegal aliens, particularly those who are deemed dangerous and who don't belong here. There are a number of folks who have crossed the border who may very well have very good, reasonable arguments to claim asylum and may be, in fact, in danger of their lives should they be deported back to their own country. I have no doubt that the Republicans and President Trump would honor that and consider all of those. Where they differ with the Biden administration is letting everybody in willy-nilly without the appropriate checks and investigations. And we now have severe problems with child trafficking and sex trafficking. They've lost track of the children in the United States, and we have a big problem here with cartels. I know of a gentleman who just a couple of weeks ago led a number of SWAT teams with armored vehicles to attack a heavily armed cartel compound out west. And we need to stop that. Those are the folks we need to deport.
Thanks, same question.
Yeah, so America is the shining beacon on the top of a hilltop, and we should celebrate the fact that we have a land full of resources that people want to come to and create a better life. I'm glad that you brought up the failed and cruel immigration policies of the former president. He separated mothers from children, and that should never, ever happen. I do not support deporting human beings into situations where they could be at fear for risk of losing their lives or political persecution. And I don't believe that we need to build detention centers for people either. They're human beings, they're not illegals. And when I go and I talk to employers around the state, I don't hear about how they have all of this help and that they always have the support they need. We need people to fill jobs, and we need a jobs training program, and we can build houses and homes and build community here. We don't have to send people home.
Okay, so follow-up question then. So we'll start with Bethany. So how would you, if you had the voice of the president, whether it's President Trump, President Biden, how would you advise them to address the issue of getting the border under control?
Sure. So one of the issues is that we don't properly fund the judiciary. So we have a lot of people who are coming in who have to wait a very long time to even have their papers processed for them to even be able to get entry. Nobody's advocating that people illegally cross the border and just, willy-nilly start sucking up resources. There is a process and people should follow it. We just need to improve our process by updating critical parts of infrastructure. Building a wall, that's impractical and it's really an old idea. We need to invest in technology that makes the process faster. We can track people so much more easily now with the help of technology. And we can also build we also need more houses to deal with the issue of the lack of affordable housing here. And so there are ways that we can maybe satisfy both.
Bruce?
I think we need to return to respecting law and order. We need to return to respecting our law enforcement officers. We need to stop defunding the police. That is, we need to fund the Customs and Border Police, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and the various organizations that are guarding our border for us and our true patriots and putting their lives in danger, guarding the border against the cartels, the flow of fentanyl and illegal aliens. So I would support funding those elements and restoring law and order. And I believe President Trump would re-implement some of the executive orders that the Biden administration discarded on day one of the Biden presidency that led to the current crisis in the border. Then I think once we stop the bleeding, we look long-term. And that long-term would be, for example, replacing the lottery system with an internet-enabled system. Look, most of the world has access to the internet. Why not require folks to take courses online in American history, American government, American culture, thereby proving they want to be Americans, thereby learning what it means to be an American and living in the melting pot, and then file their skills, qualifications, and education so that we can pick folks that will come here and help jumpstart the economy. I call it miracle grow immigration.
Okay. Next question will be Bruce. What, if any, gun rights legislation would you support as a congressman?
I just received a grade of A from the Gun Owners of America. I'm a member of the NRA, and I'm a proud owner of firearms. I do not support any bans on firearms. When our founders passed the Bill of Rights, the amendments, the Second Amendment ensuring gun ownership, there were folks who had cannons. We had privateers with gunships with cannons, and there was no problem with that. We needed to defend our nation, and we depended upon our citizens. I think the government would be far better off if the rogue prosecuting attorneys and district attorneys in the cities actually went after the criminals who are using guns to rob us and endanger us instead of going after the regular patriotic Americans who are purchasing guns to defend their families and their lives from criminals?
Bethany, same question.
Hey, that's a wonderful question. I support common sense gun legislation. I am not a Democrat here to take anybody's guns away. I believe that we can enact some common sense gun legislation to be able to, like you say, stop the bleeding. We can have a temporary ban on assault rifles because that is what is used in a lot of these mass casualty events that happen in seemingly no other country but ours and at an alarming frequency. I also very much support red flag laws that restrict access that a domestic abuser has to possibly kill or injure a wife or a partner or their children. And I also advocate for safe storage laws as well. If you're going to be a responsible gun owner, you should responsibly lock that up and keep that away from children or others who may cause harm with your weapon that you purchased. Gun owners should take some responsibility.
Okay. So we're going to go to our closing statements. So we'll start with Bethany.
Sure. Again, I just want to thank you so much for holding this forum. Free and fair elections that include a free and fair press are a hallmark of our democracy, and I am proud to be a part of this forum. You've heard a lot of different ideas from both of us. I appreciate John being here as well. And on August the 5th, August the 6th, and November the 5th, you're going to have two very, very different candidates to choose from. I advocate for making sure that our water is clean and it's free from forever chemicals and other contaminants that cause all sorts of adverse health outcomes. I want to make sure that our students are supported from pre-K to secondary schooling. We can make universal child care a reality. If I'm in Congress and Crystal Quaid is in the governor's mansion, we can make that happen. And then finally, we can make sure that these devastating healthcare bans never become the law of the land, that more people have access to healthcare, not fewer. So I ask humbly everybody who's listening, I ask for your vote on August the 5th, and I ask for August the 6th, and I ask for your vote on November the 5th. Thank you very much. This is Bethany Mann. Find out more about me at BethanyMannForCongress.com.
Bruce.
Well, thank you for this opportunity. As we close, I'd like to say we're in a fork in the road. Our republic is in grave danger. Your vote matters. Are you going to send someone to Congress that you can be proud of, a warrior, or are you going to send somebody who is going to swim in the swamp versus draining the swamp? Over 15 years ago, I handpicked the security team and personally launched the investigation that led to the indictment and conviction of a 9-term sitting Democrat congressman from Louisiana, New Orleans, Dollar Bill Jefferson. I was draining the swamp before it became a thing, and I'll be doggoned if I'm going to let you send Bob Onder, Kurt Schaefer, or Justin Hicks to Congress who are going to swim in the swamp. Justin Hicks is trying to kill a restraining order for allegedly choking his girlfriend in 2010. Bob Onder took over $2 million from AstraZeneca while promoting COVID vaccines, and Kurt Schaefer took $30,000 to sell Missouri land, and we now have China owning land around Whiteman Air Force Base and Fort Leonard Wood. It's not just endangering our food security, that is treason. And I'm not going to let Missouri send the swamp animals to Congress. I ask for your vote. I ask that you send me a warrior who's going to put you first and not myself first, to fight for Missouri, to fight for our country, to fight for our republic. BowmanForUSHouse.com. I thank you and I ask you for your vote.
So on behalf of the News Tribune, I want to thank Bethany and Bruce for participating in the forum tonight. In addition to stories about this forum in tomorrow's News Tribune, we will have a variety of other means by which you can become more informed about these races. These and other races, quite honestly, that voters will face August 6th. You can go to newstribune.com/election to see our past coverage, and we will be publishing a voter's guide as the election gets closer. So lastly, I just want to remind those who are listening, our society is served best by an informed and active electorate. I would encourage you to take advantage of these resources that I laid out and then get out and vote on August 6th. Thank you.
Thank you.